This episode is brought to you by the Watershape Society. On this, episode 23, The Traveling Salesman with SWD Master Michael Nantz, SWD Master Paolo Benedetti. They'll be discussing about working outside of the United States on construction projects and sharing some of their tips and cautions to be aware of. Enjoy this informative episode.
Hello and welcome to the Ask the Masters podcast. This podcast is dedicated to discussions about the design and construction of water shapes. The hosts of the show are all certified SWD masters who represent the leading builders and designers within the water shaping industry today.
Here today on Ask the Masters with Mike Nantz from Elite Concepts out of Dallas, Texas. I'm Paolo Benedetti from Aquatic Technology in Morgan Hill, California. And Mike and I are today we're going to talk about our episode's called Traveling Salesman. And what we're going to talk about is working out of town, doing out of town projects, working with out of town and foreign clients.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a fun process whenever that phone rings and someone says in a faraway place, will you come here? And I always laugh and tell my friends that, I'll do anything. I have my price.
Me too.
I can be bought. So, it's probably started for me, probably in the early 90s when I had as a funny story, I had a client call on Thanksgiving Day, back in the pager day. This is my first consultation out of town. And so the phone ring, or my pager goes off. I don't know why we're wearing it on Thanksgiving Day, having Thanksgiving breakfast, or not breakfast, but lunch with my family. And this thing goes off, and I look down, and it's a client that's important to me, so I called him. And he said, you need to come over. And I thought something was broken on Thanksgiving Day. Oh my gosh, what is it? And I said, can it wait till tomorrow? And he says, no, they're leaving in the morning, so you need to come by. And what do you mean they're leaving? He said, well, there's friends of mine that you want to be here. You want to talk to them. Okay, fine. So I begged my wife to let me go. She did. I took off and walk in, and it's a client from Mexico, or it's friends of his from Mexico, and they had a big place there, and they wanted a swimming pool. Actually, I take that back. It was lighting. They wanted to do some lighting, and so that lighting piece turned into the swimming pool much later. But at the time, I had no idea. I didn't know what to say or do. I'd never traveled before and even told them that. I said, I don't know how I can do this. The client says, I fly you in, and you come tell the guys what to do. Do design, whatever you need to do. I have people, and they'll do whatever you tell them to. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's what I said. So anyway, that was my first gig, and again, they held my hand on it, and I think they knew my greenness, but yet were impressed with what I had done with him, and I think they were just trying to help out a young man starting. They knew I was starting new in the business. That was the first year in business, and not my first year in pool business, first year in business for myself. And the client knew that, so anyway, that was how it all got started for me.
Well, in this day and age with Google Translate, it makes it really easy. Whether you speak Spanish or Swahili or whatever, you can literally talk to your phone and then hold it up, and it'll either read it right back to them or it'll speak it to them. So it makes it pretty easy. So everybody asks me, what language do you speak? Well, I speak Mandarin and Swahili. What language do you need me to speak?
Whatever's on my phone.
I'll make it work. I'll make it work. So Mike, describe to me like when that call first comes in and the client says, "Hey, I'm Mrs. Jones, and I've got a property we're building or developing. We're thinking about putting a pool in. I've seen your stuff online. I've seen your portfolio. I'm interested in talking to you about engaging your services." How does that conversation initially proceed?
Yeah. Fast forward 1991 to today. It's a little different than going and saying I don't know what to do. The call comes in, and usually the first thing that pops up is, again, location, where they are, and need to know that. And then from there, they kind of ask, what are the next steps? What are the first steps of how this works? And I said, well, we need to get to know each other, and I need to see the site. And so it's usually a long-term process, and in that getting to know each other are we going to be able to work together? And there have been instances that didn't work out real quick and knew it, and we begged off. But so it's that. It's a location. It's we need to figure out some way to get me there. I always explain that I work like an architect does, for instance, that I take design fee retainers. that
I knew she said you didn't say you work like an attorney.
No.
And bill for every second you're
No.
I was thinking about you at night, so I'm going to bill you for those 10 minutes because I was thinking about you in a dream.
Yeah. You consumed some of my time in the middle of the night, so here's a bill. But yeah, it's that there's day rates involved, again, depending on the amount of time. It depends on the project. It depends on kind of what they say that they want. Sometimes I will do my first site visit for nothing, for expense. Sometimes I've done that in the past. There's, for instance, a project I did in Jamaica. I already had a project in Jamaica, and someone else called me from there, and I happened to be coming in, so I didn't charge them anything. I went out to sea while I was already in on the other client's dime. I kind of extended an afternoon, and I was able to duck out and see them. So it's flexible. It kind of moves around based on what I think that they need. But if it's a complete consumption of time that it's going to take 2 days to go out and back, then yeah, I'll charge a minimum of a day rate. And then I quote the day rates. I quote what the design fees start at and where they can go to. And then based on all of that, we start making a plan. And the plan, involves other airfares and whether it's private or commercial, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Off camera earlier, we were talking about flying in clients' private planes.
Yeah.
And how we've kind of drawn the line now that, flying in their planes is cool, but there's now a minimum aircraft size that I'm not flying in a glider and I'm not flying in your experimental, drone plane.
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to be something with 2 engines and usually seats 6 or 8 with a bathroom and a door that closes.
Yeah. Or a prop plane for 4.5 hours. No,
Right.
we're just not going to do that.
Right. We're not going there anymore. We're done.
No, been there, done that. And so yeah, it's actually in my contract now. We were talking off camera earlier. It's in my contract now that that private is an acceptable way of transportation. However, private what?
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's a fun gig and the opportunities just continue to roll in year after year. I'm just blessed with good clientele like that.
So working out of town, I know oftentimes you'll go meet the clients. You will then go back to your office, work on some concepts. Do you then go back to them to present those concepts, or do you start doing this stuff electronically? You start submitting concepts to them electronically and get them and do teleconferences? I mean, how do you kind of hash out the design?
Yeah, always we do electronically at some point. But usually in those early stages, it's that part of getting to know one another. So that first, obviously the first one we talked about, the second trip back is generally I'd like to do the presentation in person. Again, there's going to be questions because they don't know what I'm going to come back with. They have no idea, no concept whatsoever. And so I need to be there hands-on to be able to explain, to be able to draw details, to be able to explain things a little bit further, to show them other pictures, and also to walk the site and to say that thing here is going to happen right there, and you'll see it from over here, but not that way. You know what I mean? So it requires a site physical visit there. I've heard of designers over the past in our industry that just sell the document. Here you go, and never even visit the site. To me, it's a complete disservice to the client. Can you do it? Absolutely you can. Have people done it? Absolutely they have. But it's a disservice, honestly, from my perspective.
I agree with you. I had a client actually just a few weeks ago down here in Los Angeles, and they had found me online, and she said, "Hey, I like your work. How do we do this?" I sent them a design proposal. They sent me some pictures of the yard. I sent them a design proposal based on where they were, just a day trip down and back in the day. And it was one of those things where she said, "Well, I don't know if we want to hire you and pay you the full retainer." I said, "Fine, let's pay for the day and pay for my travel."
Again, flexible.
Yeah, I said, if you like me, I said, if you like me, you pay the delta, you pay the difference, and pay the difference in the retainer because the travel is going to come off that tab anyway. I said, it'll allow me to walk the site with you and throw some ideas around and take some physical measurements at the same time because often their site plans are always off, as we know. They've got old hand drawings.
Field verify.
Yeah, exactly. Field verify. And then, I was able to go back and I said, how soon are you going to have me something? I said, sometimes it's like I like to go back and kind of just, I've seen their house now, I've seen their architecture, I see how they live, I've met them, I see their artwork in their house, I kind of start getting a feel for them, and sometimes I got to go back and kind of mull over it. So, I got to have a couple weeks to kind of just think about this. And
let it marinate.
Yeah, exactly. Let the flank steak marinate.
Yeah, that's it.
And I said, before we get in there and slice it and throw it on the barbecue.
Yep.
And I said, and then the presentation will I told her, probably when we come back down again on another site visit for a different job, I'll swing by and spend an hour or two going over the concepts and options and, just bill her for those couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. Sometimes you can dice up your travel and dice up, depending if you're in the neighborhood, seeing multiple clients. So
right, yeah. And again, it's that flexibility and it's being flexible to them too. If you're just a complete jerk about things and it's like, by God, this is the way I do it and my way or the highway, and don't cross this line, that just never works in life, period,
right.
in my opinion. Yeah, sure, can you be true and to your integrity and your design sense and, et cetera, but being flexible, because I want to treat people like I want to be treated, right. and sometimes, and here's the other thing that I find, and you and I've had this conversation before, these high-end, high net worth clients that can afford to fly you somewhere, either privately, commercially, whatever, but they're bringing you from one locale to another in an airplane, they are usually pretty adept and sharp at their own business and in life, period. And oftentimes they will have a better idea. So you propose something and they say, well, what about this? Because they think they know your business better than you, and they want to start massaging whatever. And I even had a client tell me this, and it actually taught me a lesson years and years ago. I used to plug in every expense that I had while I was on the road to my design consultation. And I had one client, I can't remember the bill. Let's just pull a random number up. The bill was $2,500. And he sends me a check for $2,350. And I called him and I said, it's short. We'll work it out on the next thing. And he goes, yeah, whatever. And I said, what do you mean whatever? Wait a minute. Let's go back over the bill real quick because I don't want any vagaries going on. I want this fixed. And there was food, about $150 worth of food.
I know exactly where they're going. They're going to say, wait a minute, you're going to be eating at home anyway.
That's exactly
I said, yeah, but at home, I'm not forced to go out to a restaurant.
Yeah. That's exactly what he said.
I can eat cheese enchiladas at home for $1.
But here's what I did. Again, exactly what he said. He said it really succinctly. He says, you eat at home. And he just kept talking about something else. And so it was like, but that rang true to me.
Right.
And then I thought, this is nickel and diming. I'm going to cut that out. I need to just give him a number. And that number just...
Don't itemize it.
Don't itemize it.
Roll it in.
It encapsulates everything. Yep. And so it just is so much easier and better now. And they look at one number and they decide whether it has value or not.
Right.
And if it does, I'm hired.
But you have to take into consideration those type of expenses like that, because obviously going to San Diego and eating on a food truck is a heck of a lot cheaper than if you're having to stay in Manhattan. Yeah. And the cheapest place to get a bowl of pasta is $50.
Yeah.
So there are all those economies of scale. I build in a per diem for miscellaneous expenses, whatever it is, whether it's my Uber rides or whatever. And I try not to do the same thing. I don't want them to see an itemized list because then they think I'm nickel and diming.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. It's better
and like I said earlier, I don't like to be nickel and dime.
No,
so
exactly.
Just give me a big number and I'll pay it.
Right.
Exactly. And that's the way I think they are. So yeah, I'm glad to hear you do the same thing. But it just again, it's a live and learn, and you kind of just step through it all. But I find, been doing it a lot of years now and got system down.
So I had a client where we were, there's a per day rate. And we had the meeting. We were done at 4 hours. And
that's another trick.
Yeah, it's another one.
Yeah.
We were done at 4 hours, and he said, okay, well, what are you doing the rest of the day? And I said, well, I always plan, like, especially when I come to LA, I always take the latest flight out in the day because I never know what's going to happen in the afternoon. If they want to take me to go look at something or go to dinner or whatever, I leave it wide open because I can always go to the airport and catch an earlier flight out. And I said, I'm yours. I said, what do you want me to do?
Yep.
I said, you want me to wash windows, wash your car? And he started laughing. He goes, that's an idea, but you probably do a crappier job than the guy that details my car.
Yeah.
But I said, I'm yours for 8 hours. What do you want? Anything within reason.
Yeah.
I said, I'll get up on the ladder and clean rain gutters.
Yeah.
And he laughed. He goes, no. He goes, I said, I'll be thinking about your stuff. I said, there's probably more hours that I don't bill.
Yeah.
Where I'm thinking about something or I'm working on something or I sketch something and then I put it aside for a day and I come back to it. And I'm not keeping a spreadsheet of the exact amount of time that I'm spending on a project like an attorney does, billing in the 10th of an hour. But so I told him, it all comes on the wash. You're going to get that 4 hours back somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, because the billings aren't real tight like.
Exactly. And so that's a question I have for you. I know what I do, and I'll share that in a moment. But what do you do with regard to the day rate, and how much time will you give that client in that day rate?
Well, I
when you're on site.
Yeah. So I bill for an 8-hour day.
Yep.
So even if it's 12 hours of traveling, I'd bill them for 8 hours for that day. So for instance, if I'm having to go to Nashville, it'll be usually a day of travel to get there. Usually arrive in the afternoon. I'll spend the night, meet them the next morning, spend up to the 8 hours with them, and then usually try and get a flight out that night, or if I can't, it's something early next morning. Okay. In which case, I probably would bill them 2.5 days. Yeah. I mean, I could do 3, but probably 2.5 days.
Which is what I do as well. But one of the things that I found, and this is a question more, or a statement more involved with the actual construction consultation when the construction is up and running. So those schedules are always dynamic. You know, they're fluid. The sub shows up late, they don't show up at all, and we got to do this, and we got to do that. So what I found is that, and people appreciate this, the client does anyway, is that I plug in, I'll make the statement that I'm yours up to 14 hours. Right. I'll give you, if I've got to stand out there until 7 o'clock tonight to make sure that particular element gets done per plan, I got no problem with doing that.
Right.
What else am I going to do? I don't want to go back to the hotel room.
I'm in a foreign city, and it's like I'm not going to go to the theater by myself or go see a concert by myself. So it's, if it's an on-site thing like that, I'm not real hard and fast. I bill them for 8 hours. That's it. If I'm on site for 12, hey, it is what it is.
Well, that's what I've done. I've taken the 8 hours out of mine. It's just a day rate.
Yeah, well, it's a day rate.
And then I'll say something in there again if it's construction related, up to 14 hours.
But if they do the math in the day rate, they'll see it's usually an 8-time multiplier by the hourly rate, by my field rate. Yep. So I have 3 different hourly rates. I'm not going to get into exactly what they are, but I have an in-office rate for doing design work and doing work in the office. Yep. I have a field rate when I'm in the field. Which
let's go back to the office. So do you have a different rate for the different tasks that you do in the office?
I do. I have an admin rate, which is lower, as if I don't have any field staff or any office staff anymore. Yep. But I charge as if I have like an administrative assistant. So I'm doing some just shenanigan work in the office. Yeah. I'll bill at
data entry.
I'll bid at that entry level administrative rate. If I'm doing drawings or things that require some cerebral hemorrhaging and require that I draw on my experiences to detail things for them, then that's being billed at the highest rate. At the highest rate.
Yeah, because that's the intellectual value
that's
that
the
brings
intellectual
to the table.
Value.
But I have that, and you said 3 rates, so tell me what your third one is. But mine is administrative, drafting, which is like the spa needs to move over here 8 feet.
Right.
So that's just drafting, and then the intellectual rate.
Well, so I have in my office I do all my drawings by hand.
Yep.
And I draw in all my dimensions. I don't draw to scale.
Yep.
That goes to my draftsman. I have an hourly rate that I bill for the draftsman.
Okay.
Obviously that's being marked up, but I'm what the going rate is for draft people. So once I get all my drawings off to him, I bill for that time that it took me at my rate. The high rate is what I bill for generating those documents.
Yep.
Then the draftsman, to convert all those into CAD, his hours are just strictly flipped over to his hour to the billable rate. Then I have a field rate, which is a per hour. Sometimes I'll do things locally in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so it's portal to portal. So if I leave it,
that's hourly.
That's hourly. I leave 6 in.the morning and I get back at 10 at night. Yep. Like an expert witness case. This is what you charge. You're going to pay miles at so much per mile, and that's portal to portal. If I'm doing travel where I'm getting on a plane somewhere, it's a day rate based on usually 8 times that. So unfortunately, the people local sitting in traffic is a lot less productive than I can be doing some other things on an airplane. Yeah. Or sitting in an airport, I can be answering emails, but I can't be doing that while I'm driving. Mm-hmm. So there's an opportunity. You've got to cover that opportunity cost. And then I have an expert witness rate, which is a much, much higher rate. And that rate is anything. So if I'm reviewing depositions, I'm reviewing court documents, I'm reviewing photographs, and just doing court prep stuff, that's done at my high office rate. Once it starts getting into trial prep, mediation, things where I've got to go sit sit in some boring legal proceedings,
Right.
or even just sit outside and
Waiting
waiting
your
to be
turn.
called.
Yeah.
It's being billed at the
or sitting in a hotel room waiting to be called to
Right.
the courthouse.
Right,
Done
exactly.
that before.
So,
yeah.
so I have different rates for that.
Yep.
So sometimes I can be on telephonic standby or be on standby, but just for having to block out my schedule.
Yep.
Let's say I've got to keep a whole week free in my schedule to be able to testify or be available that week. I bill them at 50% of the high rate, of the high expert witness rate, for just sitting around being available at a drop of a hat.
Oh, okay.
So it's called standby time.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's opportunity cost. I can get some work done in the office, but I've got to be able to go at a minute's notice and drop what I'm doing and take off.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how my fee structure works. And
Got it.
then obviously, if I've got flights that are over, any flights aggregate over 3 hours. So if I've got to do a layover somewhere and then get to where I'm going, that totals 3 hours or more from the first time I step on an airplane till I get off. It's business class or better.
Yep. Same for me.
So, so what I say is one full class above coach.
Yeah.
Is what I say.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to fly premium coach. It's going to be business or.
Yeah, and that's right. I kind of do the same thing. I don't demand first class everywhere I go, but beyond 3 hours business class, and I just leave it at that, as opposed to first class or business. Just simply business. But I wanted to go back to what you said. There's a lot of rates that you were kind of describing there, and is your here's mine that intellectual property rate of creating design is the same as my expert witness court case rate, hourly rate there. So because I liken them the both. I mean, the great grammar I've got there. I liken them the same because they require pretty much the same thing. You know, with the exception I've got to speak one and the other I have to put down on paper. So that's how it kind of rationalize. So is your rate different?
Oh yeah, substantially different.
And I thought I heard you say substantially.
Yeah, it's almost three. It's almost three times.
And
it's
why
almost three
is
times
that?
the office rate. Because that's pretty much what the going rate is for expert witnesses. So when I see what expert witnesses are,
Then am I doing a commercial for cheap?
Yeah, pretty much.
Today and today only.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. So, so yeah, when I looked at what the expert witness rates are for other industries,
Yeah.
whether it's concrete or tile,
Yeah.
or they were almost what the attorneys were charging.
Okay.
So
Well, I've never had anybody tell me that I was cheap. I've had plenty of people tell me that I'm expensive, but
wait
that's
till I tell
interesting.
you that you're more expensive.
Yeah. Okay.
So-
Well, I guess so.
What the motivation is to get them to settle the case before it goes to trial.
Well, sure. Yeah. That's always
The point is to get them to settle out
get everybody kind of
get everybody to settle out at
Yeah.
mediation and settle out at arbitration
Yeah,
and be done with it. Nobody wants to go to trial.
Yeah. No, that's
So
just,
that's a waste of everybody's time. And the only people who get rich are the attorneys.
I know.
Yeah,
It's just a
so-
sad system we have.
So, so beyond the those kind of rates, I mean, obviously, we all have a minimum standard for hotels.
Yep.
We're not going to stay in Motel 6s or
Yeah.
though people would love us to.
Yeah.
So we've got.
Again, some horror stories. I've been stuck in one of those before. So we talked about this earlier as well. I have that 4-star statement in my contract, but 4-star can be defined in many different ways. But I find that it gets me a comfortable, clean bed. That's really I don't want to be in the hotel room anyway. I'd rather be on site.
Right,
or in front
exactly.
with the client, hanging out with somebody wealthy. It's
Right.
more fun than a hotel room. So yeah, as long as I have just a clean, quiet bed with a shower, I'm good to go.
Right. So so we're kind of beyond the billing and the travel. So if you're going to a foreign location, whether it's within the U.S. or outside of the U.S., how do you handle the build out if the client wants you to hire the build out? I have a couple of different programs that I use to do that. But how do you approach that, and how do you find subcontractors and contractors to build the projects?
Yeah, most of the time it's like I said that very first project in Mexico. They said, I got the guys, and then you always have that thing that pops up in the back of your head, like, yeah, you got the guys, because I know what it takes, and everybody has that same idea, same thought process that the backhoe driver has. I can dig your swimming pool. I know how to dig a hole.
Right.
There's a little more to it than that.
Right.
Sorry. And so it's that kind of thing. It's finding.
I got a tile guy.
Yeah.
I got a tile guy who did my shower. He can do the pool.
Everybody's got a tile guy.
Yeah.
So you say you have a process. I really don't. I've done a tremendous amount of work out, and every time it's different. and from in terms of the build out. But again, sometimes just specifically to me, sometimes it's in and out. You drop in, sort of again architecturally, if you will. You drop in and just verify things are going like they're supposed to, and you drop out.
Because they have their own local contractor.
They have their own local contractor
who's capable.
And they're apparently to the client they're capable. And I come in and we find deficiencies or find mismeasured stuff. But my point is, I'm in and out in a day or two. So you've got that scenario. Then you've got the other scenario that the client says, just get it done. And then that scenario is long term. Now, in that, and this is maybe where you're headed, I don't know, but within that, the way I think is, all right, well, I have a day rate. But this is going to involve a lot of time. And maybe I'm just cheap here, but I will reduce my day rate. I'll discount the day rate if it's over 5 days. We were going to be there for 7. If I'm going to be there 2 weeks.
I won't do that because I'm missing out on work back at home, and I'm missing out on the ability to be doing other things. So there's an opportunity cost involved.
Yeah, I understand the opportunity cost, but I got good staff at home now, and I got a great superintendent who covers my butt right and left, doing it today, as a matter of fact, while I'm here in California. Back in Texas he is. So, it sort of works for me. And again, it's, I've never been, there's a lot of things about me that I probably would be a bit more ahead of the game in terms of dollars and cents if I were a little bit more of a harder businessman, but I've never been a big self-promoter. I've never been one to just bill the heck out of somebody just because I can.
You're not on social media,
and I'm not on social media. And so it's like I'm pulling up the rear wagon here. But yeah, it just I think it has to do with that same statement that I made earlier. I like to treat people like I like to be treated. And again, it's just what is it worth? Now, again, double all the way back to what I said earlier. It just depends on the project, depends on the client, depends on the thing, And for instance, in commercial work, and I do some things in Mexico right now. I've got one project in Mexico City, and got another project over in Monterey that we're working on. Actually, haven't been retained on that yet, but the Mexico City project we've got. And Juliet Wood is working with me on that one and doing a great job, by the way. I'm looking forward to doing this project with her. But in that case, it's full-on billing, because I'm dealing with a 60-story high-rise commercial architect, and they're just big numbers, and who cares, But it's like when I look at a person who's paying me, there's just like, right. I want to give them more than what they...
give them value.
I want to give them more than what they pay for. And so that's just my modus of operandi and everything. Whereas somebody, you got a lot of money, then you can afford to pay me a lot of money, and I just have never been of that ilk.
Well, kind of an example of that was just a Memorial Day weekend. A client last minute said, hey, come with us to Baja. And I went down there and said, we're going to be gone for 4 days. It's like, how am I going to bill them for 4 days? We're going to be partying and drinking tequila and going.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah, and going out on the yacht and chasing dolphins and whatever we're doing, laying on the beach, drinking shooters, and then working.
Wait, did you dolls with dolphins now? Oh, the last time I heard it was dolls. So now it's dolphins.
Well, they had dolphins racing along the boat. They go, we want to go out and race the yacht with the dolphins. Yeah. And it was like, okay, so what do I do when I get home? How do I bill them? Do they bill them for the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when I only worked on Monday in the meetings with the architects and the GC? And so I figured, you know what? I'm just going to show them what the day rate is. Here's what you would have been billed, and here's what I'm billing you. So I didn't bill them for the 3 party days. I billed them for the last day.
Either.
Yeah. Only billed them for the last travel day. I was traveling back and forth on their conveyance. So and I sent them the bill. And when the check came, guess what? I got paid for the full 4 days. All 4 days. I discounted the first 3 days. I just billed them for the one day that I worked. And they sent me a check for all 4 days.
Yeah.
So those kind of clients were like, okay, they see it. He zeroed it out. He's being fair. But they go, you know what? We consumed his time. Yeah. And we took him away from whatever else he was going to be doing that weekend.
Yep. Well, and the same thing happens to me. So I'm building a pool. And the client says, I want a bedroom off this end of the house because I had made some comments on the interiors. And that led them to believe that I knew a little bit about house design as well. And again, we're out in the country, so you can do it's Wild West, and so we can do whatever.
Texas,
yeah, exactly.
Big hat country.
Yeah, big hat country. And so I wound up doing some residential construction on the house. Not so swimming pool's done; it's all set up, and we do a couple $100,000 work to the house, and add that extra bedroom that she wanted. And so get that done. And then on the interiors, she had a lot of questions, and I had a lot of recommendations, suggestions. And I even mentioned to her that she asked me at one point, she said, well, don't you do all this traveling? And we had the discussion. She knew I had a day rate, which I never charged her because it was just strictly pool construction.
Right.
And then, but she knew I had a day rate, and she asked me what it was, and I told her. Anyway, fast forward, we're finishing up the house. She had a lot of interior questions, and in terms of finishes and accoutrements, if you will, of the interiors. And I mentioned to her that I was going to Raleigh-Durham area, and I said, you should take a trip there one day, and you'll be surprised at the things that you can find in terms of furnishings of the house, and it's all whole-sale stuff.
Yep.
But you got to know people to be able to get in.
And
and
you got the furniture marts.
Yeah, furniture mart. You got to get all that stuff into. They just call it market. That's what they call it.
Take you to market.
And I said, but I'm going to be out there, which prompted the conversation. She said, well, while you're out there, why don't you just go?
Buy my stuff.
And I didn't say anything. I just said, if I had time, I would. And then I remember the plans changed. Anyway, I let her know. I said, you know what? It wound up. I do have time, and I have been to Furniture Market before, and so I'll do that. I'll stop in out there. And whenever I got there, I'm walking around taking pictures of stuff, and only spend a day there.
Right.
But it took. I extended my trip a day and a half, so it was almost 2 days. And then got home, exactly the same thing. I had sent her I actually made some purchases for her. And what I had intended to do was to mark that up. And I even said to her, I said, I can get all these things, and I can just do it all on my card if you want. But if it runs through my business, I'm going to need to mark it up.
Right,
And she said, well, I fully expect that. And she said, by all means, you did a good job, like all the stuff. And so I did it, and exactly the same thing. A check in the mail comes for 2 days day rate that I didn't even bill for.
Right.
But she knew I had done this thing. And again, I was going to make a couple of bucks, and I was already out there, so she didn't fly me in, but she paid me for 2 days day rate.
2 days of shopping.
Yeah. And all I was doing, that was all I was doing. I was walking around going, oh, I like this, and take a picture and text it to her, and she's like, oh, yeah, let's do that. And so here's a painting, here's a nightstand, here's this, here's that. And so it was a lot of fun.
So the way that I work with foreign projects, there's actually a couple of different ways that I do it. Is one, obviously, I'll vet a local contractor for the client.
Yep.
So especially we're in an area, you and I now have a pretty good network of people who've been through the Genesis programs.
I missed that part earlier, but
so usually I can call on somebody that I've met through the Genesis programs.
Yep.
And pull these guys in because they've drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yep.
They know what we're about.
Yep.
And so when they get the set of plans, they realize that this is the way we want it done.
Mm-hmm.
So I can either vet a local contractor for them, and then if the owner's comfortable enough, I can stay involved with just doing periodic site inspections at critical stages. The next one, obviously, is there is nobody in the local market, but I don't have resources for subcontractors and that. So I interview somebody, pick the worst of all evils, and do, this kind of management. The guy's like under my thumb, and I've got to make multiple trips out there, and we're doing a lot of emailings and a lot of pictures and a lot of basically teaching the guy how to build a pool.
Right.
Because he hasn't been through the programs and doesn't know what we're about.
Yeah.
And then obviously the last one is direct construction.
We're
actually building it, working with the subs, writing all the scopes of work, all the RFIs. Just we're managing the project.
Yeah.
Which in that case, usually it's a percentage of the project build-out costs. I'm working on a cost-plus basis, and then I'll put a percentage in there for travel and lodging.
Yeah, there's a premium.
And usually at that case, I'll just do an Airbnb or a long-term lease on an apartment or someplace local.
Get a house.
I've got a place to leave clothes and leave work boots and just make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. So mine is exactly the same, and it's that. That's the first thing that we do. Whenever the client says, I got the guys, then we go through that process. And that's the most hair-pulling process because, like you said, they don't know what the hell
You've had a lot of stress.
I know, and I can't do it anymore. You can tell. So that's the tough part. But then when they say, well, we need help, but we don't need you every day, can't you just, in and out kind of thing? And I've been fortunate enough a lot of my guys in Dallas that actually do the build out for what I do at home, not the consultation stuff, but I'm going over the list in my head right now. Almost each one of them will travel. So I remember, 15 years ago, let's see, what is it, 2004 is when it was. So 2004. I have a project in, same one going back to what you said. So I got a project in St. Croix, and the client says, I got a tile guy. He did all of my bathrooms. He can do the pool. And so, and I want glass, by the way. And so I went to the tile guy and I asked him, I said, have you ever set glass? And he goes, no. And he said, is it like tile?
Is it like
We're in
tile?
trouble. And so I said that to him, and he said, I can do anything. And I looked at his work, and his work was great, you know. But again, we get the glass in, and it was a day. And he called me, and he says, what is this crap, and how do you set this, and I don't understand. And again, the bed prep hadn't been done. None of these things had been done.
And you get there and look at the first sheet he's done. He's got the paper stuck
No,
against the thin
this
set.
was him panicking day one, and I was in Texas at the time. And I said, well, give me 10 minutes and I'll call you back. And I hung up the phone, called my guy, and I said, this weekend, can you go? And he said, yeah, I'll go. Buy me a plane ticket. So then I called the client, told him what the issue was. Client puts down the phone, walks outside, talks to the tile guy, comes back in and says, oh, yeah, get him down here now. And so we bought him a plane ticket. He flew in. And then the next call came was that afternoon. Well, he came in that day. The next day they worked all day together. That evening, the two tile guys go to the bar.
Oh, no. Here we go.
And they call me from the bar, and they're both lit up, and they both love me because my tile guy's getting a vacation, he thinks, in the Caribbean, and the Caribbean tile guy's getting some relief of getting his butt bailed out.
Right.
And so and they're both just thrilled that all this is just working together. And so my guy spent 5 days on the job with him, and then flew home and never had to go back. Because the guy was competent,
right,
and he knew what to do from that point forward. So there's all, again, flexibility. There's all these options and ways to do things. But yeah, that the tough part is whenever he says you come build it, and I always have that same response. And Dave Penton and I were talking about this on the way in today. Dave was saying, man, I would never go that far from home to do what you do. And I said, I have my price. And I start kind of breaking it down to him, and he goes, oh, really?
Yeah. It's like, that makes some kind of sense. He goes, there's my wife's new shoes.
And it's not gouging the client.
No.
It literally is on the front end. You want me to do, are you sure you want me to do this?
Right.
It's kind of like talking to the mob boss. You
right.
know what I mean?
Are you sure?
Because once you say yes, there ain't no going back.
Yeah.
You're mine now.
Exactly.
But no, in all honesty, I tell them up front, it's a premium to get me to. Well, nobody else can. We love what you've drawn. Nobody else here can do that.
Right. Especially when you start doing with projects overseas. Start doing stuff in Mexico.
Yeah.
Even sometimes, even some other states.
Yep.
The skill sets don't exist.
Right.
So,
right.
And sometimes, I've had the same thing where the foreman for my steel crew will do the same thing. I'll say, hey, do you want to go on a trip? And first question is, where are we going? What's this we stuff? No, I'm putting you on a plane. I'm sending you there. No, it's, and he actually picks and chooses now. I don't really want to go there.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll make it worth your while.
That's it.
You know what I need? I need somebody who, as we know, tying steel is an art. And anybody can bend it.
It's a sculptural art.
It's a sculptural art.
Absolutely.
And you look at some steel and it's going every which way and it's not straight.
Yep.
But you look at guys that are like really good at it, and all it's going to do is he just needs to be on site showing the guys some of the tricks on how to make some of the bends and how to create some of these things, some of the shapes.
How to slow down.
How to slow down.
Yeah, the fast guys always make these wobbly ups. They don't care. They just slam it and go, but you've got to slow down and sculpt it.
Slow down and how to sculpt it and get it right.
Yep.
And and it's sometimes just getting the right guy. And you don't need a whole crew. You just need one guy to be there to show them, okay, well, slow down. We're going to do this here and this here and this here. And look at the plans.
Yeah.
You know those things rolled up over there on the side? We need to lay these out and look at them.
Yeah. It's in that on that one project where we brought that one tile guy in for just 5 days, and then the project was set from that point forward. It was the same thing on plumbing. So they have a local plumber. He comes in there. He's a house plumber, and he's just slamming things, and stuff's in the way, and it's the wrong size, and all these things. And I went to the client, and I told him it's just a mess. We've got to unspaghetti this and do it properly. And so I had to bring my guy in, but it was 2 days.
Right.
And out. And my guy was a little hacked, because he couldn't stay longer than 2 days in the Caribbean.
Right.
But it worked. But then the rest of it, there was a competent concrete guy there. There was a competent mason there to do the same tile guy wound up doing masonry work, and he got it finished, and it turned into be a nice little showpiece. So yeah, it's again, I can't say how flexible things need to be. I'm involved in some other business or other partnerships, if you will, in the pool business right now and in remote areas. And some people just don't understand the dynamic flow of these projects, of how, again, going back to that term fluid, they are fluid and they need revising and tweaking and manipulating. And that's the hard part to do remotely.
Right.
You need somebody on site to kind of help guide that. But oftentimes people don't understand that. They say, get the plan done, and the plan is exact, and this plan is specific, and we'll follow that.
But it's not
always.
It's not, because
that's what they don't understand.
You can't put every single tiny detail in a set of plans,
Yeah.
or we'd never finish the plans.
Right.
You have to assume that the person who's building it has some minimum level of competence to get there.
Yep.
And then the details, it's like, I can't possibly put every little detail, every little corner beak detail on how I want the tile pattern to look on the corner of some steps. I can't draw that out every time, but
yeah, exactly.
when things are coming together is how.
And so here's the thing that, and again, this conversation is just prompting all these other things that just fly up in my head of experiences I've had. So here's another aspect of this thing that we do. And that is, again, whenever we try to delineate all these things down on the plan, can you or can't you put it all in? Even if you can put it all in, there's still revisions to be made. And also, and again, I don't want this to sound like I make things so complicated so that they have to bring me in, but sometimes I do draw things that are my vision. And for instance, recently I had a remote project, and the client, the mason calls me and he says, just send me a picture of the rock feature that you want to set up on the back of the edge detail. It's an edge wall that's 70 feet long and 10 feet high, and it's on a slope, and the slope doesn't fall front to back, it falls left to right.
Right.
And I want to mimic that fall as we come across the back of the edge with the rock. So I want the rock coming across that edge on that same angle. I can't trust. The mason says, just send me a picture of what you want. I think I'd love to, and I wish you could, but I think I got to come there. I think I got to paint that line out. I think I got to set a whole course, if not more, with me standing there going, move this rock, or me driving the SkyTrack. I'll get on the SkyTrack and pick that stone up and fly it over to you. I'll get in there and grab it. Watershapes had a picture of me grabbing this was in I think I was, Jim McCloskey said I was his first cover boy. So it was early on in Watershapes, and there I am flying. They were flying it on a crane, a big rock boulder, and I'm sitting here kind of setting it like I want it, and I'm knee deep in the water. There was already water in this particular pool, and we were setting it on a pedestal. So I get involved in my work that way, and even the client didn't know that. They roll up and they go, what the heck are you doing? We got people that do that. No, not like this. And it's not that could other people do it, but it's so given that specificity, you got to be there.
Right.
Which it goes back to the design. Originally, I got to be there in order to take it all in, to give you everything that you deserve, because you're paying a lot of money for this.
Right.
And so that's another piece of the pie.
So, all right. Anything else?
I think I got it, covered it all, and good talking with you.
You too. Well, thank you for being on this episode of Ask the Masters.
Ask the Masters.
Great seeing you out here in California.
Yeah, good seeing you, Paul.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Ask the Masters podcast, and don't forget to check out our Facebook page each week on Tuesdays for new episodes of the show. I also want to encourage you to stop by the Ask the Masters Facebook page and invite other like-minded individuals to join us there as well. Feel free to jump into the conversations and even post your own questions. We want to create a community which fosters learning and discovery for the betterment of us all. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. Please be sure to subscribe and feel free to share.